Dan Rubenstein, we have rounded the corner. It is finally talk.
Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, welcome back. Today is the day. Let's talk some Big Ten, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, Ty. I'm very good. I am quite excited to talk about the Big Ten. I know you are excited because you're just like, I want more teams. Give me 22 Big Ten teams. Give me 27 Big Ten teams. Maybe Memphis has $400 million they have lying around that they can offer to the Big Ten. This is quantity in quantity, right? This is the creatine conference. This is I don't remember which reality show it was. Maybe like The Bachelor where one guy was just eating turkey slices. He was like, it's the most efficient way to get protein in. This is bulk for bulk's sake. Welcome to the Big Ten.
This is bulk for frustration's sake. I don't know if you felt this way going through it. It's the second year, of course, now that we have all these teams, 18 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But I felt this palpable sense of frustration going through, putting together my notes on all of these teams. There are so many damn teams in this conference. There are so many damn teams. It's going to be a fun conference. We're excited about it. We're going to talk through all of that here as we get into our tiers and some of the storylines and things like that on this episode. So we're excited about the Big Ten, but man, they almost are at the point where they do need to add two more teams and then break it apart and have a East and a West. Like create a new Pac-10.
Sure.
Now that they're branching off and creating
Pacific
another
division
Pac-12.
of the Big Ten. Yeah.
We need to have some sort of setup to make this a little bit more digestible. Perhaps that is the reason for today's show, my friend. Welcome back to you. Welcome back to all of the Everballerhood. Go back and listen to the G5 previews we did, the ACC previews we did, the Big 12 previews that we did. Today is part one of our three-part Big Ten preview series. On today's show, it's the higher level stuff, the big talking points, the water cooler moments that you want to have at the ready if you're at the office or just out and about the town, something that you can kick around with the boys. Contender tiers, you name it. That's today's show. As we get into part 2 and 3, that's when we're going to get into team previews and that sort of thing. So hit follow, hit subscribe. You don't want to miss those episodes. Verballers.com, VERBALLERS.com. That's where you get the ad-free episodes, the bonus content. You get everything a little bit early. Games are going to be spinning up as we get a little bit closer to the season. I will shut up now. That is too long of a diatribe.
Okay.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Still good. I just want to know your thoughts about the Big Ten in general. So this was a terrific year for the Big Ten last season in that they were another conference in which a new team, at the very least, competed for the conference crown. Oregon ended up winning it as a new team. Of course, SMU was seconds away in the ACC. ASU won the Big 12, and Texas was seconds away in the SEC. And so it was a novel year, of course, in adding LA schools, Washington and Oregon, officially on the field last year. And the Big Ten had emerging teams like Indiana and Illinois that they seem to be the premium conference nationally after the SEC seemed to take a step back, both in terms of teams who did and didn't make the playoff. And this is always going to change. One year does not affect the next necessarily, but it did seem like 2024 via those stories that Northwestern had the Waste Management Open Stadium on the water. Like, it was just a good year for Big Ten weirdness, narratives, and in some cases, excellence. And so I want to know how you feel in the shadow of that.
Well, and not to mention, a Big Ten team won the title for the second straight year. Big Ten,
of course, won the title and, reversed, a pretty terrible end of the year, given the loss to Michigan that Ohio State suffered at home. And it was, not just Big Ten, but Midwest, having Notre Dame, Penn State, and Ohio State, represent in the semifinals of the college football playoff. So there's just a lot of meat on that specific bone.
Yeah, I think in the shadow of last season, you have a couple different schools of thought. Obviously, we've got teams at the top.
Mm-hmm.
If you paid any attention to college football this offseason, there's been a lot of steam on Penn State.
Sure.
I got my Penn State shirt on now. I probably could have worn the hat. I'm trying to be a little bit unbiased.
Brag much? You have a shirt and a hat? Continue.
Trying to be unbiased. But clearly, that has been a huge talking point in Big Ten circles about what Penn State has coming back and reasons to be excited about what 2025 could mean for them.
What
for
Ohio
James
State doesn't
Franklin.
have coming back. Yeah.
Right. But I feel like there is one whole lane of thinking that we almost had to devote to the contenders,
Sure.
the contender tier, which we'll talk through here. That's interesting in its own right. Where I really find this conference to be most interesting, though, going into 2025, is the race for fourth place and the collection of teams that I feel like are on the fringe of bowl eligibility.
Okay.
And because we're going to talk so much about the teams at the top, and to some extent, some of the teams at the very bottom and the challenges that they've got, there's a big grouping of teams in between those two poles that I think are really going to give this conference some flavor. So for me, I found a lot of interesting tidbits going through that collection of 10 to 12 teams, figuring out where are the movers and shakers, who are the new names to be aware of, and furthermore, where do I think I can add something that's actually useful for people out there? Because again, 18 teams is a lot. As we're doing a show like this, we're going to talk through all of them, if only for a few minutes here and there. It's important to give people a little hook that they can grab onto.
Yes.
And I found more of those in the middle than I think I did at the top and the bottom.
Yeah, I think that's right. When we started getting into tiers, the second, third, fourth, I don't even know. How many tiers do you even have with your 18 teams?
I've got a contender tier at the very top.
Yeah.
Then I've got the battle for fourth.
Okay.
I've got another class that I'm calling, in your honor, weird little stinkers.
Okay.
Teams that are probably missing a bowl.
Okay.
And then bottom dwellers. So what is that? 5?
I have five as
different
well.
tiers?
Yep.
How did you break yours up?
I have contenders. I have shown enough to beat any of the contenders and possibly vault themselves into that class of team. I then have definitely quality teams, but clearly flawed. I have aching for more, but it's going to take a minute. And then I have teams that it's sort of tough to even squint and see how they get into another tier, if that makes any sense. But it was actually the second tier, which I guess you said was the race for 4.
Yeah.
That was very difficult, not just in who belongs there, but how do you order those specific teams? And what do you take into account? Like, is it just, we do that for all of our preview, the part 1 of the previews when we're breaking these into tiers. It's just like, do you think they're better, or do you think by the fact that their schedule is
That's
what
right.
it is?
Yeah, I had the same problem. Dude, I went back and forth so many times on the grouping of teams that I have.
And where are these two teams playing each other? Are these two teams playing each other? Yeah.
Case in point, I will talk a little bit, maybe not so much on this episode, about Illinois and Indiana.
Yeah.
Two teams that I think are crazy interesting this
Sure.
year for different reasons, but
Same page.
very, very interested in that game because they do play earlier in the season.
And that's at Indiana, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And it's not the kind of game that I think is necessarily going to get the national highlights. But I think in the Big Ten world, it's obviously very meaningful. These are teams that are both very, very good in this conference. And to your point, yes, if all things fall correctly, could challenge at the very top, or at least make things interesting for some of those teams in the contender tier.
Mm-hmm.
It's games like that I look at, and I just really struggle. It depends on which way the wind's blowing, how high the humidity is, what like all of these external factors. I am trying to reach out and seek some guidance on how I should order these teams, because there is that group. Again, my battle for fourth, I've got 6 teams in there that all kind of feel the same to me, putting them in any kind of logical order. I'm sure we'll have people chime in
Right.
and dispute the logic here, and that's fine. That's like, I get that. I'm disputing the logic here, but that's really where I think this gets super interesting and difficult in our chairs anyway, to try and put these things in a real order that makes sense.
Yeah, you're also dealing with a conference this big. You're dealing with a scheduling issue of everybody's kind of seems like they have maybe 2 of the 3 perceived powers, or two of the 4. I don't know if anybody has 3 of the 4 or all 4. of these superpowers, quote unquote, within this conference, or, maybe they have 3 of the 4 perceived worst teams or 3 of the 5 worst teams, but you get scheduling quirks like you did with Indiana last year, where you're like, I'm positive this team is really good, but it also helps that their schedule is what it was, or was what it was. And some teams are just loaded up because it's just got bad luck, or it doesn't seem like they're loaded up, but all of a sudden they have a team that everybody thought was going to be okay, starts 5-0 or 6-0 or 7-1 or something like that. And so the variance of schedules, because it's probably not going to be a conference with 2 great teams, 2 bad teams, and 14 okay teams.
Right.
That you're just going to have some wacky schedules in retrospect. And so trying to figure that out in mid to late July, tricky.
It's tricky, man. I had to take, you can ask Kate, several walks around the block to try and...
Oh, I thought you were going to say ayahuasca.
No, well, that might have helped as well.
Ayahuasca. Yeah.
That might have helped. Maybe that's the next step.
The vision, yeah.
But I tried several walks around the block to clear my head and get more of a sense for how I was feeling about these teams. I'm not sure I got any closer to it.
Sure.
I was changing this around just before we hit record here. So this is all a very long way of saying that the Big Ten is large. There are 18 teams. Putting these teams in any sort of logical order, I think outside the top and the bottom is difficult. But if you have listened to our previous episodes, you know we're going to try our darndest here.
Yeah.
To make the very best of this. Why don't I start in a little bit of a different way?
Did you say the D word on this show, Ty? Is that what you just went with?
Darndest, yes.
Yeah.
Very scandalous. I am asking you here and now, calling you out onto the carpet.
Please.
You have to pick one team in the Big Ten, not to win it all, not to finish last, but one team sort of in that middle that you identify the most with the word sleeper. Who is it?
Sleeper. Okay. So somebody who could emerge and be much more than or the consensus, whatever, conventional wisdom is saying. That's what you're saying?
Doesn't have to be a contender.
No. But somebody emerging from a perceived tier to another tier.
I think so.
Or a couple tiers up.
Who's that team to you?
It may be... Oh, that's tough.
I can give you mine.
A couple tiers up, I think it might be Washington.
Oh, Dan, Washington is my team too.
If you're talking 2-tier leaps, though, right? That, I like Iowa, but I don't think they have much upward mobility because they're already a quality team.
And the schedule sucks. I mean,
right.
It's harder. It doesn't necessarily suck, but Iowa's schedule's harder. I think Washington is the obvious answer for me. And I've got a couple other ones that we'll talk through. Right now, I've got Washington in the weird little stinker tier, but feisty team a year ago. I love Damon Williams taking over at quarterback.
Okay. Needs a line in front of him, but they're trying.
Needs a line. I like the hire of Ryan Walters. Obviously, did not work out in his time at Purdue, but before he got to Purdue, he was pretty damn good at being a defensive coordinator at Illinois. That's how he got the job. I like the roster. I think it's better. The schedule is tougher, but I think we saw a lot of fight out of the Washington Huskies last year, and it would not surprise me if they end up taking somebody big down this season.
Okay. I'm not against that pick. I kind of like Minnesota here, but it's a weird schedule, and I just don't know.
You say this. Here are my 3 weird little stinkers. Okay.
Okay. So what tier number is this? Are we not going in order?
Not right now. We're not.
Okay.
We'll jump around. This is sort of right in the middle. Okay. I've got 5 tiers. This is my 3rd tier down. I've got Washington at the top. I've got Minnesota just under Washington. And then I've got Michigan State as my 3 stinker teams.
Okay.
I am with you on Minnesota as well. I think it's probably going to be another 4 or 5 loss season for Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I am calling them my but also team this year because weirdly I found that every good point and every bad point had a qualifier. You could sort of temper every single point, whether good or bad, with something else that is going on with this team. So it's really in the eye of the beholder to determine what Minnesota means to you in 2025.
Sure.
And then with Michigan State, I'm sort of intoxicated by the combination of Aiden Childs and Nick Marsh.
Okay.
I think they'll be fun. I think the defense will be better and formidable. I think the path to a bowl game is very challenging, and I'm not sure they get there. But I do think they'll be plucky. They were plucky last year. I think they'll be plucky again this year and with a better roster. Again, if we're talking in terms of stinkers or sleepers or whatever your nomenclature,
Yeah.
you're looking for teams like this that you know are going to come out there with a lot of fight, that have improved in some way, shape, or form, and have a schedule that sets them up, in some interesting situations.
Okay. I'm with you. Yeah, I don't know who like last year's weird little stinker would have been in, like maybe UCLA within the Big Ten, the way they started out losing whatever it was, 5 or 6 straight, and then beating Iowa and Nebraska, being right there with USC. I think they beat Rutgers as well. I want to say on the road. Rutgers might have been that stinker. Wisconsin was almost that stinker, taking Oregon to the full 4 quarters. Also looking terrible at times. In that tier, do you want me to give you that tier? I don't know if I'm calling it my weird little stinker. I think so. Washington's in my like definitely quality tier.
Yeah.
With Minnesota, Rutgers, and Nebraska.
Okay. Wow, Rutgers.
Yes.
Wow, Nebraska. That seems low for Nebraska.
You think that's low for Nebraska?
I do.
You have Nebraska on a could beat a contender tier?
Yes.
Oh man. Okay.
I do. I'm going to jot these down side by side, and then we'll go through them later.
Yeah.
Why don't we do this? Let's jump all the way to the very top and work our way down.
Let's start there. That was a tease.
Who is in your contender tier?
The obvious 4.
Who's the 4th?
Michigan.
Really?
Yes.
You like Michigan in the same tier as Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon?
Yes.
Why?
Because I think they're a tier above. I mean, if you wanted to say that I can go those 3 teams, Michigan in its own tier, and then the next tier down, I'll consider it. But that gives me 6 tiers, which is so many tiers.
It's too many. It's way too many tiers.
So Michigan is flimsy on the end of that, but I think their defense could look. They didn't have an offense last year. Period. They did not have an offense. They didn't have interesting skill talent beyond Colson Loveland. And they didn't have quarterback play. They didn't have receivers who could stretch anything. And the running backs were good, but reliant on, somehow forcing their way through stacked boxes. So the offense just did not exist last year. And they beat the national champion. They beat the best team in college football. They returned some of those playmakers on defense. And the offense should be better this year just because the transfers brought in a better offensive coordinator and at least more experience in that quarterback room. We'll see, how long it takes for them to start a true freshman. But there is something about Michigan that they can ugly their way to beating a really good team. I think this program has recruited well enough that they can fill in the gaps up front. And we'll get more into this with the Michigan specific preview. But because of the defense, I think they're going to play defense as well as anybody will in this conference at time of recording. And if you play defense as well as anybody, I think that grants you permission to get behind the velvet rope of Dan Rubenstein's top tier.
I had Michigan in my contender tier and I moved them down.
Okay.
And the reason for that was as I went through and studied every team in this conference, I kept finding other teams that I liked a little bit more than them for one reason or another. Maybe schedule.
Okay.
Maybe offense. Not so much on the defense side because you're right. Their defense, especially the front seven, is going to be the meat of this team. It's going to take the offense, I think, a little while to develop. I think it will, but I think it's going to take a minute for it to get there.
Yeah.
And so that was my main point of hesitation with Michigan. But they should be very formidable, and they are clearly in the battle for 4th.
I just don't think
we would. I think we would agree that they're probably not one of our top 3 contenders, but
they're not number 3.
If you were to tell me at the end of the year, Michigan finished 4th in the Big Ten, I'd be like, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. That's why I've got them in the battle for 4th tier.
Yeah, I think they've recruited on a level that's superior to the teams that you may be comparing them against. I think they will be able to, again, defend on a level that I'm not positive the teams you might be comparing them against can. And there's a certain amount of seasoning to Michigan and obviously Sherrone Moore when he's on the field. that they bring to the table. And then you also have to look at maybe specific Illinois, but also Indiana. Indiana got a lot of the sort of criticism and finger wagging about who they didn't beat last year. Do we want to review what Illinois did last year impressively and not through any fault of their own, but they sort of stacked wins against a schedule and were fully uncompetitive against the best of the conference last year, right?
They were.
Is that
and
the
if you
word?
look,
Uncompetitive? Do we think that's a word?
That's a word. If
Okay.
you go back and look at our friend Bill Connolly's second order wins, which again takes the stat line from any given game, runs it through the simulator, tells you how many times out of 100 they're winning that game. He had Illinois at about 2 fewer wins than they finished with last season because even some of those games that they won, it wasn't necessarily a stellar performance. And so there's definitely some school of thought out there that even though they had a great season for sure,
right,
they were not as good as the record would have indicated.
But they bring back a lot, and we'll get into it on the Illinois specific one. But yes, continue.
So contender tier then, we're in agreement, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon.
I have Michigan in that tier
And
as
Michigan.
Well. But yes. And my order, do you want to know my order there?
Yeah, sure.
My order as of right now is Ohio State, then Penn State, then Oregon, then Michigan. I don't know if you have Penn State and Ohio State flipped. I presume you may.
I have Penn State 1.
Okay.
This is one of those walks that I took around the block.
Mm-hmm.
All the pieces are in place for a title run for Penn State. There are 2 big games on the schedule. It's a very advantageous schedule. They've got the home game against Oregon that I think we're still trying to go to.
Yeah.
And then they've got the road game a little bit later in the year against Ohio State. Those 2 games will determine ultimately whether the regular season is a success.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to find a universe in which Penn State completely whiffs on the playoff. If they completely whiff on the playoff with this roster, that's going to be a reckoning in State College because everything in James Franklin's career as a Penn State coach has pointed to this moment where he's got this roster back, this schedule, this, I guess now format throughout college football that allows him to get in even if he's got 2 losses.
Yeah.
There is a lot building towards this moment for Penn State. And sooner or later, they have been knocking on the door for a good long time against Ohio State. Sooner or later, they got to get another win against them. So games in Columbus, I don't like that setup, but nonetheless, I like Penn State. Maybe I'm a homer, I'm a grad, but I've got Penn State 1. I've got Ohio State 2.
Yeah.
What's interesting about Ohio State, and this I'm sure will come as no shock to anybody who listens to the show, despite the fact they've got a ton of new faces, still your national title favorite at 5-1.
Yeah.
Still the net, like Vegas saw that and committed it to memory and said, they're still the favorite to win.
Right.
Plus 500. So I think we need to know a little bit more about the Buckeyes and
I
we'll
just
talk
think
through that. But there is certainly reason for optimism despite the fact that there is a lot new there.
There's a ton new there, and it just happens to be a year in which Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon and Alabama and Georgia and Texas and take your pick, Miami, are all working in new starting quarterbacks. Miami's, obviously Carson Beck is not a new starting quarterback, but he's a new starting quarterback there with a newly rebuilt elbow. And Clemson is that one team where they're like, oh yeah, we know what this quarterback is for Clemson. But when you look at the national title contenders and whoever I may have left out, Notre Dame, new starting quarterback, of course. That's why you can look at Ohio State and say like, oh, they replace a bunch of full-time guys on the offensive line, defensive line, in the secondary, at running back, and yet, I think they're still my favorite, right? It's just that kind of year.
And it speaks to the job they have done assembling talent.
Yeah.
Which is, again, an embarrassment of riches in Columbus. I've got Oregon next. I think Oregon's going to be incredible up front on defense. Completely nails on defense.
Okay, a lot of new faces.
A lot of new faces, but I think they're going to be really good. And I really like Dante Moore. I think Dante Moore ultimately has a higher ceiling than we saw to Dylan Gabriel.
Okay.
But we're not going to get Dylan Gabriel production right away. I think that's unrealistic to
No,
expect.
and he
that
has time. The schedule, it's whatever you think about Oklahoma State, but yes.
Absolutely. And even if you take a team like Ohio State didn't get its seasoning until arguably after the Michigan game.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of snapped out of whatever funk that was and went on this incredible tear to win the national championship. Oregon, I think, stands to be another one of these playoff teams. All three of these teams should be in that playoff, barring any kind of disaster.
Sure.
But for me, it was working in the new quarterback. For me, it was maybe not having the same level of production as we've seen the last year or two out of that offense that I think held me down a little bit on the Oregon front,
Sure.
but I'm still pretty high on the Ducks. There's no reason not to be.
No, we've talked about it, and maybe this is just like a slot receiver thing, but we talked about it with Xavier Restrepo and Miami. We talked about it with Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers a couple years ago. The Tez Johnson factor is extremely real. That for 2 years, he transferred in from Troy, and he was such a sure thing when healthy. He was out for a little bit last year, that we all may collectively be saying, like, oh yeah, they're going to just continue to be good and continue to find receivers, which sort of undersells how dependably excellent he was for that offense on 3rd and 7 or in the red zone or, generating an explosive play. Oregon, of these teams, they have, to me, so I guess of Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon, and this is why they're third to me, is they have a lower floor because of the number of guys that have to hit for this team to be excellent. Not saying they can't. They've recruited and, portaled in guys who absolutely could have a hugely high ceiling, but they need hits at so many position groups: receiver, secondary, defensive line, offensive line. Not worried about running back with Mekhi Hughes, but and most of all quarterback, that I think you have to, you can't in earnest say that they feel like an Indianapolis team. Like Penn State has the clear highest floor because of what they return. Ohio State has the clear highest ceiling because of the playmakers on both sides of the ball are just better than what Penn State and Oregon have with Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Down and Sonny Styles. There's just too many of those types of guys. But Oregon just needs more of those mysteries to unfold in their favor.
Now, on the Penn State side, some of the questions are pretty obvious. And by the way, as we're putting these tiers together, that tends to be the tell. Because as you're studying 18 teams, and at some point it all sort of runs together, you tend to find that the teams with the fewest questions or the most obvious questions, let's say, are the ones that bubble up to the surface and become your contenders. And that's true for sure with Penn State, with Oregon, with Ohio State. In some cases, they have some of the same questions. But there just aren't a whole lot of them, which is why they're here. Obviously, Penn State, to your point of playmakers, Penn State's got to figure out something out wide. And they tried in earnest to make that position group better. They had a bunch of guys leave. They brought a bunch of guys in. As we talk through our Penn State specific team preview, maybe on the next episode, we can get into that and what I think is realistic versus what isn't. But clearly, each school has a question like that you can point to and say, that's the one thing. That's the one thing. And I tend to agree. Oregon's got a lot of upside with the talent that they've got coming in, but they got to hit on a lot of it. A lot of those new faces got to hit in order for them to, I think, emerge as you said, an Indianapolis team. Yeah.
Who am I talking about right now in the Big Ten when I say, got some pretty big questions about what this pass game looks like? Who am I not talking about?
I know. That's true. All right. So we got Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. You mentioned Michigan.
Yeah.
I've got Michigan in my next tier down, in which I have a grouping of 5 other teams. This is my battle for 4th. I've got Michigan in the same grouping as Illinois, as Indiana, as Nebraska, as USC, and Iowa.
Okay.
In total, 6 teams. And I've got them in that order, by the way.
Okay.
I've got Illinois over Indiana, over Nebraska, over Michigan, over USC, over Iowa. Again, there are too many damn teams in this conference.
Sure.
That is how I list out those 6 teams. I like Michigan. I do like Michigan. My point of hesitation here is with the offense taking a little bit of time to develop. They are clearly better on that side of the ball, if only because they now have an actual quarterback.
Right.
But, you lose Colston Loveland. You lose your starting running backs from a year ago. Like what they've got, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, the guys replacing them, the guys coming
They're
in
fine.
from the portal.
This
I
isn't
think they're
going to
all pretty
bottom
good.
out.
Yeah.
But again, there are moving pieces there that may take a little bit of time to develop. And maybe Bryce Underwood turns into Vince Young. I don't know. That seems to be the comparison that everybody's making. That would be incredible for Michigan. I would love to see that. Absolutely love to see that. That would be friggin' awesome. Just don't know. Don't know yet. I don't feel confident enough saying that. Even though you see the pictures of him, he looks like a god among insects on the sidelines next to his teammate. He looks, like he's 6'7" Thomas Castellanos.
I know, but you're also nearly 30 years older than him, Ty. He's a young dude.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
So I like Michigan, but I had to temper my excitement a little bit. I've got Illinois with 9 or 10 wins this year.
Okay.
And I think this is probably Bielema's best team since he got here. I think they're held back by their wide receiver room. I think they're held back by their defensive line. They had no pass rush last year at all.
Right.
And there is definitely some element of how good is this team really, given what we saw a year ago and given that second order win stat that I trotted out earlier. But I still like this team. This team's got a ton back, an absolute ton back from last season. And it seems to set up pretty well for them to have a real honest to goodness shot at fourth place here.
Yeah. The concern with Illinois is what I just laid out, that they beat up on a bunch of down teams last year and weren't at all competitive with the best teams, whereas at least Indiana, it wasn't a great second half against Michigan, but they won that game. And they acquitted themselves okay against Ohio State. Not great, okay. Whereas Illinois was down like 31-0 at halftime to Oregon. Illinois was never competitive. I think it was Penn State, right? Oh, no, 21-7 was the Penn State game.
That's right.
It was, but they couldn't move the ball at all.
It wasn't a super competitive game, no.
Right.
It really wasn't.
And they lost to Minnesota, which I didn't love. I mean, I think Minnesota's fine. But this is also an Illinois team who I think, did they barely beat Purdue?
Right.
One of the worst power conference teams of the modern era? Okay, just making sure. I got something.
Where do you have Illinois on your side of this? I'm assuming they're one tier down.
I have Indiana, Illinois, USC, Iowa on that next tier.
Okay.
I don't have Nebraska on that tier. Who else did you have on that tier that I didn't have?
I have Nebraska. I have Iowa on the tier.
Who did you have? Minnesota, Washington? Who else was there for you?
Illinois, Indiana, Nebraska, Michigan, USC, and Iowa.
Oh, because you had Michigan down there. Okay.
That's right.
So I have Indiana ahead of Illinois. The game, I think Indiana's schedule, while definitely more difficult, is okay. And Illinois goes to Indiana. I think I like the upside of Indiana's offense a little bit more than Illinois' at this point.
They should be loaded on offense. They should. I have some defensive questions, and I do think the Indiana schedule is harder. It's not hard to be harder, where they came from a year ago. But Indiana has ascended to this point now very quickly under Kurt Cignetti, where they're no longer just trying to get the small school guys to come up and play for Indiana football,
right?
Because there's a slot. A lot more, let's say, Power 4 starters signing up for Indiana football now. It seems as if their activity in the transfer portal has definitely stepped up a notch because of the success that we saw in year one with them obviously getting the playoff, having a really good year. They are building on that rather quickly. So I think they'll be fine on offense. Defense to me lingers, and we can get into that more. But all things considered, I've got Illinois and Indiana kind of like 1-2 in that next tier down.
Yeah, I guess for me it is Indiana blew the friggin' doors off of its competition last year. And even with the changes, I think Fernando Mendoza, and by the way, they blew the doors off with a quarterback with a torn ACL, right?
That's right. Yep.
Indiana now down Tino Sunseri, who moves on to, I think he was quarterback's coach, moving on to UCLA to run their offense. Very strange to say out loud that we are old enough where Tino Sunseri is now a coveted coordinator mind. But alas.
It's a good hire. I like Tino Sunseri.
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is what's also happening with Indiana is you're not only losing impact players, but you're like, okay, how do you backfill this coaching? not to belabor this point, because I do feel like Illinois is a quality, good team that returns a lot of quality, good players. In terms of the Big Ten, they barely get by Nebraska late, correct?
Yep.
One of the worst offenses in America, if not, obviously the Big Ten. All-time bad Purdue team, they sneak by in a shootout. The worst Michigan team of the modern era, basically. The worst offense of the modern era, it seems. They win comfortably, 21-7. They get blown out by Oregon. They lose to Minnesota. Comfortable win against Michigan State. Miracle against Rutgers. 10-point win against Northwestern. Illinois is a good story. They are a good team. I'm just not there in terms of how close they can be to a murder machine. A really disappointing, as you mentioned, run defense. So I'm not there yet. I think Indiana is closer to murder machine than Illinois, so I have them ahead.
But we are in agreement. They're a rung down.
They're a good team.
And on some level, it required a little bit of rumination to figure out who you're putting where.
Totally.
Now, we definitely disagree on some of the other teams in this class.
Yes.
You have USC under Illinois.
I do.
I also have USC in my battle for fourth.
But not under Indiana?
Oh, I've got Illinois, Indiana, Nebraska, Michigan, and then USC.
Okay.
I kind of feel like this team got worse.
Okay.
I kind of feel like they got worse, and I found that I liked USC far less than I expected.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if you had a similar reaction to what you read.
I don't think USC got worse. Okay? I think USC's starting point is intriguing, and I think what ails SC is more fixable than not. If you look
at
how
what do you think ails them? If you're pointing to one thing that ails them, what is it?
4 full quarters of football.
4 quarters of football. Okay. How do you fix that? Because, look, we've had that conversation about a bunch of teams now through previous
they
seasons.
benched the guy who was playing quarterback for a lot of those losses, so that was a starting point. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's gone.
Yep.
How do you fix that? You get deeper on defense, so legs aren't as exhausted in October, November. I think they've gotten a little bit deeper on defense. You need talent, but I think they've built up the depth there, especially up front, but really on all 3 levels. I have concerns about their offensive line. I think their skill talent should be fine. I think their quarterback should be fine. But if we're just talking about can USC ascend to a level where they are unquestionably better than and beat inferior opponents, they're not far off.
No, I would agree with that part. Yeah, absolutely.
The way that the games ended against, take your pick, Maryland, Minnesota, Washington. And look, they almost lost to UCLA as well, so you got to take the good with the bad. But in terms of how far off they are with the starting point of intriguing skill, talent, a quality defense, I think definitely a good defensive coordinator, definitely a good offensive mind who sometimes struggles to call a game with more runs, and, figure out ways to drive down the field late against clearly inferior teams. I think it's more fixable than simply like not having the guys good enough to win these games. And I think USC has the guys and they can win these games.
I just look at USC and I want to be tickled.
I know. You want to be seduced. You want to have your ear nibbled. I know.
I want to look at this roster and I want to say these are the obvious go-to guys. These are the playmakers.
Sure.
And that's not to say they don't have them.
I think the receivers are good. Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon. Yeah.
I think the receivers are really good. I think Jaden Mayava can be really good. He needs more seasoning.
Sure.
But you like what you have there. I agree with that. But I get a little bit leery when suddenly we're taking in transfers from New Mexico to be the starting running back. No disrespect to New Mexico. They had a pretty good offense a year ago. But
yeah,
I'm just... I want to find more of those gravitational players, especially on offense, because I think USC ultimately is going to be driven by offense. It's a Lincoln Riley team after all. And I was coming up short trying to find those guys, those gravitational players, those winter wonders, as we call them here, that jumped off the page to me. And I said, that guy's going to be a problem. There just weren't enough of those for me.
I hear you. I don't know. Their schedule is such where they just need to win a bunch of these games 30-24. Can you score 30 points with Jaden Mayava not throwing interceptions, bombing the ball downfield to good receivers, having emerging tight ends, and hopefully having a solid offensive line. It's probably not going to be an incredible one. I don't know that USC has had an incredible offensive line under Lincoln Riley. Last year was definitely a step forward.
Can they do that? Yeah, they can do that. They're going to put up 400 yards a game. It's the Lincoln Riley offense.
So, got to generate some turnovers, got to get off the field. They were good on third down last year, right? Danton Lynn?
Yeah.
I think they were really good. If you're going to compare USC against Nebraska or Michigan, I think their starting point is pretty good.
Okay.
And I have Michigan ahead of USC because I think Michigan will defend better than USC does anything. I just think USC is a complete enough team to go 9-3 against this schedule. They can. Again, they lose to Maryland last year. Everything's on the table. But I'm saying, a pulley here, a chain there. I think they can win more games. They're not far off. They were not in the way that Illinois was not competitive against the best of this conference. USC was right there against Michigan last year. I don't know. I think that's something, right? Walk before you jog, before you run, before you sprint.
You mentioned Nebraska. I've got Nebraska right under Illinois and Indiana.
Okay.
And above Michigan, above USC, and above Iowa in the battle for fourth.
Okay.
And my thinking here was, it's year 3 under Matt Rule, which is usually a pretty good indication that it's going to work. He just has that track record. I think the offense is much improved. I think the defense, especially up front, sort of an open question for me. So, you can't be too high, but I like that Dana Holgorsen is going to get the full year now to run the offense. They've had such issues along their offensive line. I think their offensive line should be better. So I just think incrementally what Matt Rule has done with this roster, he has made it better. Sure. And the way that the schedule sets up, at least in the early part of the year, they've got, I want to say in their first 8 games, 5 of which look to be very winnable. And then it gets tougher the final 4 games, 3 of which could be losable. So the variance for Nebraska feels much higher to me. Like you could talk me into anything from 6-6 all the way up to 10-2. I am not going to pick one of those. I'm going to come down somewhere in the middle. But I think like 9-3-ish for Nebraska this season. I like what I saw. I really like what they did in the receiver room.
Okay.
Via the portal. So I'm pretty optimistic that this is another big step forward, as we've seen time and again with Rule when he takes over these programs.
Also should be noted, year 3, when he was with the Carolina Panthers, was fired after starting out
the
season.
Where's my button? Hold on.
Not talking about this.
Coaches go through different eras. And here's what I want. I like Dana Holgorsen stepping in. I like that it seems like they upgraded at receiver. They've been led by their defense. They lose, I think, everybody up front and their defensive coordinator, which is why you're talking about the wide variance, to your credit. They lost 5 of 6 to finish the year last year.
Wasn't it? Where's my button again?
We're not
talking about this.
About something clicking and like, they're going to keep this going on offense. Now, Dylan Raiola is a freshman. You're going to take freshman lumps. All of that is clear. He's going to be better this year.
Yes. And he is very good. I mean, you could clearly see why everybody's excited about Dylan Raiola. He needed more of a supporting cast. But clearly you could see on display why he was so highly recruited.
Sure. 14 points against Rutgers, 7 points against Indiana, 10 points in a loss to Iowa. I don't want to heap too much credit on a Matt Rule team, capital MRT, while also looking at year 2 was not all that fun to be a Nebraska fan. No, Rutgers game against Nebraska was one of the worst TV shows of 2024, right?
It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
They have gotten no line play.
Okay.
None.
But it's never been easier to bring in new linemen.
The line has been, I think, hugely disappointing.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be better this year. I think it finally rounds into form enough this season that it's not going to drag down the offense.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping that the combination of the better line play, another year of Raiola, Dana Holgorsen, bringing in Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter via the portal out wide. I'm hoping all of these factors kind of work together, and that's what propels Nebraska forward.
Okay. How many coaches is it going to take at a specific school that don't succeed for you to be like, oh, maybe this is just like a 6-7 win program right now in college football?
Well, that's possible too, but they have gotten better.
They 100% have gotten better.
They have gotten better in each of his 2 seasons in Lincoln.
Well, it was a low starting point from where Scott Frost left the program. It's just they're in a very difficult conference right now to get too much better, it seems.
I think Nebraska, Michigan, USC are probably like my hottest takes.
Okay.
In the Big Ten. And I'd be lying if I said I were comfortable speaking from my chest on any of those points, because I'm not. I'm just not. I've all got them in the same tier. I think a lot of these teams are interchangeable.
Okay.
But I just, upon doing the reading, maybe it was the mood I was in or the thing I was eating for dinner. But I rank them Nebraska over Michigan, over USC in that next tier down, the battle for 4th. And then the other team that I had in that I think you also said you have in this one tier down is Iowa.
I do.
I want to know why you felt as optimistic on Iowa.
Why? Because we have 25 years of footage of Kirk Ferentz teams that tells us that they're going to continue to find and develop defensive players, which I think they're going to continue to do this year, even though they're replacing a lot on defense, that things have opened up a little bit on offense, even with the guys they lose. Caleb Johnson was great for the Hawkeyes last year. Even with the guys they lose, even with a big question there, what's it, Mark Gonrowski from South Dakota State?
Mark Gronowski, man. Oh,
he has a surgically repaired shoulder as well? Yes?
Man, I watched 2 hours of Mark Gronowski highlights.
Jeez, like in the dark alone?
Where's this at?
Not talking about this.
Listen, I am all in on Mark Gronowski.
Okay.
I think he's
Great.
the real deal. I think he is the real deal. You know how I am about these FCS transfer.
I was going to say, there's no Max Brosmer led the literal least explosive offense in America last year. And Ty, to this day, will tell you, if Ty happens to be in Minneapolis and people start talking about Gopher football, you're like, oh, I love Max Brosmer.
I was right on Cam Ward, though. You know I was right on Cam Ward.
You were right on Cam Ward. Absolutely you were.
I was like 2 years too early on Cam Ward, but I did the same level of research on Mark Gronowski, and I'm in. Yeah. I liked Iowa way more than I expected. Because we've been talking for like 2 years now about how, listen, the schedule's going to get tougher. They can't hide behind the Big Ten West and that whole scheduling setup anymore. It's going to, they're going to have to make some changes. They're going to Kirk Ferentz. I think they're an 8 or 9 win team. The schedule is definitely
that's
harder.
not a take at all. They always are.
The schedule is definitely harder.
Yeah.
But if Gronowski hits, I think this is going to be a team that sneaks up on a lot of people, especially on the offensive side of the ball, which we're not, at least recently, used to talking about Iowa as any kind of offensive threat.
Well, which one of these teams definitively has a good enough offense to score 24 points without turning the ball over a catastrophic number of times on their schedule? Penn State and Oregon?
I guess, yeah.
So if you even pencil in losses to Penn State and Oregon, which, by the way, where are those games? Both in Iowa City.
Both those games are at home.
Do you have any scar tissue and trauma regarding games with Penn State traveling to Iowa City?
Where's my button? Let me see if I can find this.
Not talking about this.
The game was in State College, but just that matchup in general, the 6-4 one.
Oh, I'm not talking about 6-4. I'm just talking in general. Even when Penn State wins,
doesn't matter.
Was it fun leading up to the point where, was it Trace McSorley who found somebody in the back of the end zone?
It's never fun to play
Iowa.
No. In Iowa City. Never.
I can drive to this Iowa-Oregon game. Do you think I'm even considering driving whatever it is 4 hours each way to watch them lose a game 17-14? Absolutely not. 100% no.
I don't blame you.
100% no. So, Iowa has Phil Parker calling their defense. They have a more inventive offensive coordinator than they've had over the past few years, starting with last season. Their schedule's not amazing. They get their 2 toughest games at home. They get a revenge spot in the Cyhawk game on the road, but that's after Iowa State comes back from Dublin, correct?
correct. I like how you added
Dublin.
that emphasis. Yeah.
They travel to both New Jersey and Los Angeles this season. And that's a Los Angeles trip after hosting Oregon. And a New Jersey trip before they play Indiana, which should be a tough game.
Sure.
The schedule's not amazing. Minnesota's going to be tough this year. Wisconsin should be improved this year, and that's on the road, albeit after a bye. But I still think, on a certain level, Iowa's the one who knocks. Go ahead and throw it into the teeth of this defense. Do it. Do it. See what happens.
I kind of think it would be an incredible story if Iowa ended up being the fourth place finisher in this conference, just because Kirk Ferentz has proven, it's been a rough go here on offense. So I'm not going to sugarcoat this.
Right.
But longest tenured coach in college football. He's been at this forever. He clearly knows what he's doing just on the surface level as a coach, even if some elements of this have passed him by.
Yeah.
I think it would be a great story for Iowa to bubble up and become the fourth place team in the conference. And I think it's there. I think the possibility does exist. I'm not banking on that.
Now, could they go 4-8 against this schedule?
Yes.
If things don't work out with your precious FCS quarterback, if the defensive line doesn't come together as previous defensive lines have, I think linebacker's a big question after last season as well, because they had a ton of experience there that's now gone at linebacker, if memory serves. Obviously, talent in the secondary, a lot of it's gone. But, you could have quality Iowa State, quality Rutgers on the road, quality Indiana, maybe quality Wisconsin on the road, obvious Penn State, Minnesota quality, obvious Oregon, USC quality, probable improved Michigan State, probable decent Nebraska.
Yeah, listen.
It works until it doesn't, right?
It's 5 of the projected top 7 in the conference.
Yes.
Plus Iowa State. So, yeah, it's not easy. This is not an easy schedule, and it helps to have the defense. For what it's worth, I think the defense probably takes a little bit of a step back, but
they did last year.
But they only allowed 17 points a game last year.
Yeah.
And it was a top 15 defense. So even if it marginally gets worse, it's still pretty damn good. It's not going to hold them back from winning 8 or 9 games, but I take your point. I don't think you're wrong at all.
They allowed the same number, 2 decimal places, points per drive defense as Penn State's last year, finished in the top 10 nationally.
Let's go one tier down.
Okay.
All right. So Iowa, I guess, is something we both agree on as kind of like the bottom tier, or the bottom
of the second tier.
Bottom of the second tier. Thank you.
Yes.
What is your next tier down? Mine is the weird little stinkers. All right. So for me, if I am ordering these teams, and it doesn't matter what we call these tiers at this point.
Right.
My next one up after Iowa is Washington, is Minnesota, and is Michigan State, in that order. Who are your next batch of teams?
Minnesota, Washington, Rutgers, Nebraska.
Okay. You're really low on Nebraska, and we're going to get to that in a second.
Sure.
Why Minnesota over Washington, and why Rutgers in this tier? Because that feels real high to me for Rutgers.
I'm going to need to see protection from. I need an offensive line from Washington. I like the defense fine, but I don't know how many non-secondary playmakers will emerge up front still for Washington. And I just, right now, I think what PJ Fleck has at Minnesota is a little bit more dependable. I think the ceiling might be a little bit higher eventually for Jed Fish at Washington. But right now, with Minnesota, I think there's too much quality. And Minnesota's got, a new defensive coordinator as well, losing Corey Heatherman to Miami. But I don't know. There's something a little bit more dependable about Minnesota right now. I think they can only get more explosive on offense. I like the running back room. We'll see Drake Lindsey, a young new starting quarterback. He's obviously a pretty big mystery, but I don't know. There's a dependability about Minnesota right now. Washington's schedule is fine, but they have Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon. And I don't know if any other teams in this conference have that. Did you come across any other teams with that?
I don't have that at the ready.
Okay.
What I'll say is this, though.
Yeah.
Me being high on Minnesota is not a new phenomenon on this show.
Right.
I'm always high on Minnesota.
That's true.
And so I look forward to commiserating with fellow Minnesotans after
like you're one of them. Yeah.
That's right. Honorary, of course.
Yeah.
after another 4 or 5 loss season.
Sure.
We have a lot of Minnesota fans that listen to this show. They all know what I'm talking about. It's going to be a 4 or 5 loss season. It always is. I am so confident in this, and I was going to save this for one of our next episodes, but I'll unveil it now.
Okay.
I have pre-scheduled a Zoom call for December the 17th at 8 p.m. titled Minnesota Football Support Zoom.
Why
All
December
who
17th?
Because it's after the season, before the playoff.
Oh, okay.
All are welcome to attend this. Just email me, solidverbal@gmail.com, and I'm going to send you an invite.
Buddy,
I'm
you might need
100%
to do that after week 3 at Cal.
I'm 100% serious about this.
Okay.
Send me if you are interested at our email address. I will add you to a list. I'll automate it or something so it sends it out. But I have scheduled that Zoom because I just know it's going to happen.
Okay.
I know it's going to happen. I get excited about Minnesota football. They will have a good year in some context, but it still will leave us like wanting for more. So I need to finally talk to somebody about this so it doesn't build up and I make the same mistake next year.
I'm looking up notable University of Minnesota people to see if we can get, we could get Jesse Ventura on this Zoom.
Okay.
I don't know if he went to Minnesota. Bob Dylan appears to have.
Okay.
Can we get notable Minnesotans on? I'm looking at arts and entertainment. There's a good long list of people, Ty. We got to get
right.
you somebody on this list.
We'll find somebody.
Okay.
But that's where I'm at with Minnesota. You've got them above Washington. I've got them one rung below Washington. Why Rutgers though?
Man, I am just sick of thinking Rutgers isn't good and then having them beat somebody good. That I just am going to include them in a tier of teams that is just going to beat some. Like I have Rutgers ahead of Nebraska.
Yeah,
just because
I don't
I'm
get that.
so terrified annually of what Rutgers is going to do.
I think the big theme as you look across all of the preview stuff and try to decipher what Rutgers is going to be this year.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter where you look. The team is better. Like legit, the roster is better.
Yeah.
Than it's been.
They have a better coach than most of these teams.
100%. And it just may not show because of the schedule being harder. They were a 7-5 team last year. The 7-6, they lost the bowl game to K-State. Right. I wanted more last year. We both did. We talked it through in last year's preview. But again, it is slowly getting better. I think they expect a slow build. They're cool with the slow build because Greg Schiano is a good coach and knows what the hell he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
There is a good deal of optimism around this team. And I think they feel generally pretty good about what they have coming back, even though there are some losses. So over-under is 5.5. I think there's a path to get into this tier. And I get where you're coming from. I don't get putting them above Nebraska, though, because I've got Nebraska as a 9-win team, and I don't think Rutgers is anywhere close to that.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have Nebraska that high. I have them 6-7 wins. I have them right around the same record as Rutgers.
Wow.
Yeah. Look, I am not crazy. I mean, it's Ethan Kaliak-Manis again, right? For Rutgers?
For sure. Yeah.
37 years old, ready to roll out. Piscataway.
I saw a thing that they're going to maybe try to throw it a little bit more with them. Don't like that.
That's fine.
Big kid. I don't know if the body of work necessarily supports an idea like that. So I'm very I'm cautiously optimistic about Rutgers' bigger picture. Like I said, better roster. I don't think it's going to show up because the schedule's harder. I'm curious to see what they do with this passing thing. If there is a commitment to throw it more, what that looks like, because I'm not sold on the quarterback. But I would say generally speaking, I share some optimism with Rutgers, just not putting them in that tier and certainly not above Nebraska.
They got a weird travel thing where they travel cross country at Washington before hosting Oregon. That Oregon game is after Oregon plays Indiana at home. Oregon traveling cross country to play Rutgers. I know a lot of people in New Jersey. Brag much? I'm not going to that game. No. I got a lot of couches I can sleep on in the greater, what is that? North Jersey area?
Yeah.
Or South Jersey? I don't know. North Jersey, right?
Rutgers?
Piscataway? Yeah.
Sort of like Middle Jersey.
Okay. I'm not going to that game. I'm terrified of that game. Absolutely
Okay.
not.
I've also got Michigan State in here. And I talked through a little bit of why earlier, but Aiden Childs, Nick Marsh, that is a tandem that is too much for me to say no to. So I think the combination of those two guys is enough of a starting point for the offense that anything additive, anything in addition will give them a nice little boost. I think the defense makes the team interesting.
Okay.
Four of their 5 big tacklers are gone, which hurts. But the upside that I see with this team is because they were so nicked up a year ago, a lot more guys got experience.
Okay.
So there should be better depth across the board, at least on defense. They brought in a bunch of defensive line transfers as well. So there is this question of, can they generate a pass rush? They did not have one at all last season. There is this question of the schedule, which I do think is tricky. They're at USC, at Nebraska, at Indiana, at Minnesota, at Iowa. They've also got Michigan and Penn State at home on the schedule. It will be tough sledding if they want to hit the over 5.5 and go to a bowl. But if you believe in Jonathan Smith, if you believe some of the glimpses we saw last season where they were inconsistent, but they played with a lot of heart, I think there is enough here to at least keep them in that stinker tier. Not necessarily to get to 8 wins,
Right.
but just to knock off one of those teams and make the conversation a little bit more interesting in the Big Ten.
I hear you. And it's hard to fully gauge what kind of improvement a team can have year to year. They finished the season losing by 27 to Rutgers, if my math is correct, right?
That's a lot of points to Rutgers.
It's a lot of points to Rutgers. That was at home.
Yeah.
I just think it's an uphill battle. I think, yeah, you're right that going 5-7 last year, all things considered, decent.
I think so. I really do. I think all things considered, what they did last year was a hell of an opening stanza for Jonathan Smith.
Yeah. I think they have a brutal schedule this year. I think
it's
Boston
ridiculous.
College is better than Michigan State.
Yeah. I can make that case.
The game's at home, so that's nice. But in the Big Ten, SC, Nebraska, UCLA, I think UCLA is not as good as Michigan State right now. But we'll get there. UCLA adds a good quarterback. Much better quarterback situation than they had last year, or at least a higher ceiling.
Right.
And Michigan State at Indiana, as you mentioned, Michigan at Minnesota. It's just quality until that Maryland game.
So
They
you don't
feel
have
like-
Michigan State on this level. You've got Michigan State a rung down, I'm assuming.
I have Michigan State the top of the next rung. Yeah.
Okay. So we're
We're right around the same place.
sort of in the same spot.
I think they're more of like, they could have, obviously, benefited from a much softer schedule than what they were dealt.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
So if you've got Michigan State at the top of your next tier,
Yeah.
that means you've got them above Wisconsin.
Yes.
That means you've got them above UCLA.
Correct. That's my next tier. Wisconsin and UCLA in that order.
So where are you at with Wisconsin? Because we talk about Michigan State and the tough schedule that they have.
Yeah.
Wisconsin might have the toughest schedule in America this year. I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah. It's
So-
real bad.
How much of this ranking is because of the schedule, and how much of this ranking is because, frankly, this is a team that hasn't had an identity in 2 years?
No, they could lose their final 8 games. And it wouldn't even, they won't be favored in any of their final 8 games, I don't believe.
I mean, the
Depending on
schedule's
what
ridiculous.
Washington, I guess, looks like, because that game's at home in Illinois.
But is it because of the schedule that you've got them ranked here, or is it because you just don't think it's a good team?
I think it's an improved team against a brutal schedule. And so
Okay.
the improvement I can see is more cohesion on offense. There's definitely like, I think their skill position players are decent with no huge amount of upside. They're replacing a ton on defense up front, and they're going to have to score 35 points a game against this schedule for me to feel decently about them going 8-4, 9-3.
Should I read this off quick?
And the pathway to 8-4, 9-3, or the pathway to 35 points is foggy.
They start off with Miami, Ohio on Thursday, and then Middle Tennessee the following week.
Mhm.
That's pretty much the end of the gimmies on this schedule, okay? Week 3 at Bama. Week 4, maybe I lie, home against Maryland. They should be able to win that one. Then after a bye, it's at Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, at Oregon, bye. Home against Washington, at Indiana, home against Illinois, close out the year rivalry game against Minnesota.
Yes.
You could easily find it within yourself to say this is a 3-9 team based on this. I don't think they're going 3-9. I think they'll pick up some wins here and there, but I am not betting anything on over 5.5. I don't hate some of what they've done here. I like going out and getting Jeff Grimes. I think that was a smart move. The Phil Longo air raid never clicked.
Right.
So they're going in a different direction this year. That works for me. I think that's much better. Not crazy about Billy Edwards as the quarterback, but
I think he's an improvement. I think
he's better for the system. Okay, because they have had statues the last couple
he
years.
can move a little bit
with Tanner
Jeff
Mordecai
Grimes.
and a cup of coffee with TVD and Braden Locke. Like none of those guys could move.
I thought Tanner Mordecai was pretty good. He got hurt, but yeah,
he got hurt. I don't know if Billy Edwards is a good fit for the offense, but I think he is a better fit for this style offense than any of the guys that I just listed.
Sure.
That I guess listed off because he can move. So I do like that about his game, but I just look at the schedule and I tend to agree. I think the roster is better, but the schedule is just impossible. And I'm curious to see how the Wisconsin community deals with this when we talk, 6-7 months from now, because there's going to be a conversation. I'm not sure this team's making a bowl with this.
No, I mean, I think Wisconsin can go 7-5 against Penn State schedule.
Yeah.
Right? Penn State, by the way. Here's another sidebar. If they're an edge playoff team and we start looking at the non-conference portion of Penn State's schedule, it's not great. If they're an edge case with 2 losses or something. Okay. You need firepower against this schedule on both sides of the ball. You need the Wisconsin defenses of the 20 teens and the dependability of Wisconsin offenses with like an All-American caliber with tight end and running back and a steady quarterback, even if he's not great, and All-American and first-round draft pick type offensive linemen. We're just very far removed from that reality with Wisconsin football. And, they bring back a couple of offensive linemen, but lose the better of the offensive linemen. They don't have even a tight end, it seems, who's going to be a major, major weapon like we've come to see out of Wisconsin. And so 4-8 is probably where I'm at with them.
And then you've got UCLA in this tier as well. So UCLA seems to be one team that we agree on their precise ranking within the conference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty low. We both got them 4th from the bottom. UCLA is going to get a lot of headlines going into this new year because of their quarterback. Because Nico Iamaleava decided to transfer from Tennessee, go elsewhere, landed at UCLA. What I'll say is this about that. The only thing more brutal than UCLA's schedule was Nico's decision to come to UCLA. Because the rumors out there. The rumors out there is that Nico, and I can't confirm this, but this is just what I'm seeing online. Nico's dad might have gone to Josh Heupel and said he needed a better supporting cast. Of course, it wasn't about money. We know that. But he needs a better supporting cast. This is indisputably a worse supporting cast.
Correct.
Than he had at Tennessee.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe they're nicer to him, but I can guarantee they're not paying him more. And I can guarantee that this is not a better situation with a better supporting cast. So you can talk about Nico all we want, but I'm not crazy about this UCLA team at all.
No, okay, here's what you have out of UCLA. Here's the case for UCLA. The case for UCLA is it was a kind of year 0 situation with Deshaun Foster thrust into it late in the process when Chip Kelly decided to leave for Ohio State. He didn't have this kind of head coaching experience, program building experience. He has a full year of seeing what he has and what he doesn't have, full year to hit the portal, and obviously Nico is the big addition here. That they could have folded after losing whatever the 5 or 6 straight last year, and they showed some fight with a not great roster. So that's what? Nearly beating USC, beating Rutgers, Iowa, beat up Iowa, and somebody else. I don't know if you have the schedule in front of you. It was Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Your
right.
precious Huskers.
Love the Huskers.
And that game was in Lincoln, for what it's worth, if you want to write that down. I just don't know that Nico's the guy. Like, forget the surrounding cast here. His upside seems to be, but how far removed are we from him as a recruit? Enough to say, like, we know what he is as a college football quarterback. And that was, for too much time, a liability throwing the ball downfield, making quick decisions for Tennessee, an offense predicated on making quick decisions. And so if he held on to the ball too long, and he played like an absolute warrior against Ohio State with the number of hits he took. Like, he earned a lot of respect from a lot of people, just like from the toughness angle. But now he's going to have to be spectacularly good and make these receivers great and play behind a questionable offensive line, need to outscore a defense that has a number of issues. And they had to make a coaching change in basically the middle of the year last year at offensive coordinator. So now maybe Tino Sunseri brings some stability and is just a better teacher for Nico than what he had in Tennessee. It's possible. Schedule's tough. They have Northwestern. They have Michigan State. Those are both on the road.
Listen,
they're coming to the Temp Stadium.
There are 9 or 10 bowl teams on the schedule. Maybe 7 top 25 teams at the end of the year.
They've got Utah.
This is not an easy schedule.
No.
And here's the other thing. I take your point, and you're not wrong. They had momentum at the end of last year. They did.
Sure.
They had some real momentum, and the hope is now you can add to that momentum by bringing Nico in. He's an upgrade at quarterback.
Over Ethan Garbers. Okay.
Absolutely an upgrade.
I hope so.
The problem is what you don't get from any of those headlines, which is they are worse literally everywhere else other than quarterback. They're not better. They just aren't. And so because of the fact that they brought in a bunch of new guys, basically 35 guys left from last season.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That momentum goes out the window, man. This is a new team this year.
Agree.
This is a new team. So I am not picking up what UCLA is putting down. I'm just not. The schedule is brutal. I think the upgrade at quarterback is one thing, but I think the downgrade, at least marginally so, pretty much everywhere else is going to override it. And look, Nico has his reasons. I don't know the kid. Obviously, we don't know the kid. We don't know his reasons for doing what he did or his family's reasons for doing what I guess they advised him to help do. But I don't get it. I don't get it this year. The over-under is 5.5. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
I like Javian Thomas, by the way.
I do like Javian Thomas. I do like him.
He's good back. Was good for in Jaden Ott's stead at Cal last year.
That then brings us, I guess, to the bottom 3.
Yes, which we agree upon.
You can it seems agree on this.
Yeah,
I've got them Maryland followed by Northwestern followed by Purdue.
Yeah, which, by the way, anybody saying anything about Purdue is wrong. They might go 6-6. I don't know. Barry Odom's a really good coach.
69 new players, Dan.
Yeah. What did I call them?
Well, we were kicking it back and forth.
Yeah.
Because I said Purdue in name only, and I was trying to workshop some sort of like Pinot Grigio, Pinot Noir thing for that. And you said the Boilermakers or the Mercenaries.
Yeah, I said Boilermakers in need of immediate heat.
Yeah.
I like Mercenaries better though.
Mercenaries has some heat to it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, who the hell knows? I mean, 69 new players, 54 in the portal, 15 via high school recruiting. I don't think they're going to be good based on the roster that they've assembled. We also didn't think Indiana would be that great a year ago.
Right.
And they ended up going to the playoff. So
Fiery defensive mind brings in a bunch of transfers. It's worked in the state of Indiana.
It has worked. I don't think it's going to work here. I don't.
God, how great would it be, though?
That'd be a cool story.
I don't think it's going to work either, but
we could bring back the spoiler makers, actually.
That's true.
Northwestern, I think the roster's better. I think the schedule is murder.
Yes.
And I'm intrigued by Preston Stone, the transfer coming up from SMU to play quarterback. I am also mindful of the fact that Northwestern has been where transfer quarterbacks go to die.
Yeah, also true.
None of those transfer quarterbacks have ever hit at Northwestern. And so that gives me cause for pause.
Mm-hmm.
Defense should be okay. Defense will be all right.
Defense needs to be way more than all right, though. It needs to be Hankwitz level defense for Northwestern.
Yeah, the defense needs to be the 85 Bears. Yeah.
Oh, it just needs to be like the 20, I forget which year they were at, like the 2020 Northwestern defense. Was that the year they went to Big Ten championship game against Ohio State?
I have no idea.
It needs to be that level. Yeah.
And then Maryland. Maryland's got the best schedule in the Big Ten.
And it probably doesn't matter. Yeah.
It probably doesn't matter. But you know what? Even though I've got them as the third worst team in this conference, there's a real entertainment factor here with this team because they are crazy young.
Yeah.
Because they've got Malik Washington, their 4-star quarterback from like a half hour up the road coming in. I would assume we will see him, if not right away, at some point very soon.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole goal of this season for Maryland is not necessarily to win a bowl. I mean, you always want to go to a bowl. You always want to do as best as you can when it comes to the win-loss record. I get that. The goal, though, is to see which young guys pop, to find out which guys you can build around moving forward. Next year's schedule, by the way, is friggin' torture. So they need some guys that they can build that project around in 26. Otherwise, totally different conversation around Maryland. But at least for this season, schedule, I think, gives them enough wiggle room. And I'm curious to see if any of the young guys pop.
But it's just the wrong year for Maryland to have this schedule. If this were like a Talia team from 3 or 4 years ago, this is a 9-win team.
Yeah.
Against this specific schedule, because they miss Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon.
If they played the schedule last year, they're going to a bowl.
Sure. Yeah.
So it works to their favor. I just, this year it's I don't know, maybe that's good for the youth development type situation, right? Maybe they'll be able to develop guys, they'll be able to get more guys in.
Sure.
There'll be a little bit more wiggle room there. I don't know. I'm probably just making that up, but there's real entertainment value, at least for Maryland. So I'm cool with that.
Yeah, the home road splits are at least somewhat interesting, but they're on the road a ton back half of this schedule. They play all their home games, or play all their non-conference games at home, and then it's a lot of the Terps on the road. They do get Michigan and maybe look-ahead spot, which is always seems to be the case, that they get Ohio State or Michigan the week before.
Yep.
And I think they get Washington after Washington has Ohio State, and they have a bye before that week, so it's very trappy for Washington, who struggled going cross-country against Rutgers last year. So there's, some situational intrigue, but beyond seeing some interesting young pop on this offense, I don't know. The lines of scrimmage seem to need a lot of work, and yeah, there's just not a ton there in terms of dependable playmaking on both sides of the ball.
Who do you have in your title game?
Ohio State, Penn State rematch.
Rematch.
Yes.
Ohio State winning, I'm assuming, based on the way that you've ranked these teams?
Ohio State winning, just because if you're going to give me the opportunity to say James Franklin and Penn State come up just short in a big game, I'm going to say I believe that. Yep. I think Penn State has a great shot of beating Oregon at home, which they will be favored to do. So that tells me that they're probably going to win that game. It's a home game they'll be favored in. And I think Oregon has another loss in them based on just a sloppy Dante Moore game. I don't know if it's Iowa. I don't know if it's Rutgers. I don't think it's going to be Washington. But there's just, I think the Minnesota game maybe, it's after they play Iowa and before SC. That could be weirdly trappy. And Minnesota has a bye before that week. I don't know. There's some weird trap situation for Oregon on here that I don't love. They have a mutual bye before Indiana. But yeah, there's enough to scare me about this Oregon schedule. I'm not really terrified of Wisconsin as an Oregon fan. But yeah, something like Penn State and Iowa. They have a bye before the Iowa, or Penn State, Minnesota. I don't know. Washington's on the road, and if Washington's a pretty good team, that's going to be very difficult. So maybe that. But no, I think Oregon's baseline 10-2. I don't think they go 9-3.
So I have a bit of a wrinkle here.
Okay.
At the end of the Big Ten season.
I'm ready.
I've got Ohio State going 11-1 with that one loss coming in week 1 against Texas.
Yep.
But I have them beating Penn State on November the 1st. That game is, again, in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a continuation of a trend, a very painful trend for Penn Staters and James Franklin. But if I told you right now, two good teams playing in Columbus, you would pick the team that's at home in Columbus.
Right.
I've got Ohio State beating Penn State regular season. But I've got a rematch taking place in the Big Ten title game in Indianapolis, and I think that's when Penn State gets Ohio State.
Sure.
So I think they split their what amounts to 2-game season series. I think both go into the playoff. I think we've got a couple playoff teams in this conference. We can talk through what that looks like for us as we get into some of our team previews, as we get into at some point down the road our prediction special, which we'll do a little bit closer to the season, who's getting in and who isn't.
Yeah.
But it's not just going to be those two teams. I think Oregon's probably going to be in that race as well.
I think so.
And that's when it starts getting interesting, because we're going to start talking about these teams that we both have a rung down. And over the course of the year, it's going to they're going to sort themselves out. And there's probably going to be another team that finds its way in.
Agree.
So we'll see. I've got Penn State. You've got Ohio State.
Yes.
Would welcome the Verballerhood to chime in as well. solidverbal@gmail.com, of course, is the email address. Hit us up. Let us know what you think. You can also comment out there on YouTube, on Spotify, really anywhere. Leave us a comment. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Of course, if you made it this far and you've already hit follow or subscribe so that you don't miss the episodes, a star rating, a review, all that stuff goes an awful long way towards helping out Dan and I, growing the big tent here, the Verballerhood. And last but not least, verballers.com is where you can go if you want to support the show.
Directly support the show, verballers.com. Keep the lights on. We are always crazy indebted and appreciative to everybody who supports the show. We're with you in the Discord. It's a terrific time. And this is just like a pre-hello to all of the Nebraska fans in the YouTube comments, in our inbox. Let me say,
which of these fan bases is going to email and be the loudest?
I've had
Nebraska
nothing-
for you, for sure. We've had several encounters with Michigan faithful over the years.
That's fine. I mean, everybody's going to take issue with something. That's the beauty of college football. I should say, Nebraska is where we met for the first time in person.
It is, yeah.
I've had terrific experiences. I've been to Lincoln 3 times, I want to say, at least 3 times, and I've enjoyed my time there. I met the one and only Playboy Playmate I've ever met in Lincoln, Nebraska at a tailgate.
Yep.
I have nothing. Bo Pelini was super nice to me, which is rare. Not people being nice to me, but I think Bo Pelini, I don't know. I interviewed him for a video, so I like Nebraska. I just, maybe not this year.
Nebraska, Michigan, and USC. It will be a 3-horse race to see which fan base is most put off what we had to say about them.
I liked SC, so I don't know.
You did. Well, I like Nebraska, so they won't come at me for Nebraska.
Yeah.
I didn't like USC, so I'm going to get the wrath for that one. And I've got Michigan right now, 7th in the Big Ten. So I'm going to get the brunt of that one as well.
Game is in LA, Nebraska, USC. We'll find out.
I've got Michigan beating USC.
No, I'm saying Nebraska, USC, but also Michigan, USC is in LA.
I've got Michigan beating USC, and I have Nebraska beating USC too.
There you go. Wow. All right. So this is part 1.
Part
Team
1,
specific, part 2 and 3.
2 more parts coming up. There'll be team-specific previews. We'll split this up into 9 and 9 and talk through the remainder of this conference. Again, encourage everybody to weigh in. Let us know their thoughts. Tell your friends about the show. We appreciate everybody's ongoing support. A lot of study in trying to get our head around these teams here in the Big Ten. We still have the SEC to go. We still have Notre Dame and UConn to go. We got to be complete here about all things. We've got some home and homes coming up with some special guests, which we'll unveil here in due course. And at some point, we'll do our prediction special before the season gets rolling. So a lot more to come here as the season gets a little bit closer.
Can't wait.
For that guy over there, my good friend, Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thank you again for your ongoing support, for downloading the show. Tell your friends about solidverbal.com or anywhere they get their podcasts. In the meantime, until next time in part 2, as always, stay solid.
Peace.